9 o'clock across the UK.
Where there is a proven medicinal use for cannabis, for instance, we should make that easier for those to have access to it in a straightforward, legal way.
The most talked about radio show is here. Call Clegg. Get straight through now. 0345 6060 973. Leading Britain's conversation. This is Call Clegg with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Only on LBC.
It's time for Call Clegg with me, Nick Clegg, here on LBC. So I'll be here as ever for the next half an hour taking your questions. Do call on 0345 6060 973 or get in touch by email at nickclegg@lbc.co.uk. And of course you can watch, as always, on the website lbc.co.uk. So let's go to the first caller, who is Neil in Woolwich. Hello, Neil.
Hello, Nick. You all right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm not actually in Woolwich. I'm in Sheffield.
Oh, right.
Oh.
Where?
At Ranmore.
Oh, right. Well, I'll be there later today.
Yeah, 2 minutes from your office, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
What are you doing there?
Well, that's where I'm from. I originally called you and I was in Woolwich at the time, so I think that's why they've got me registered as Woolwich.
Ah, okay. But it's Woolwich to Ranmore. All right.
You are in the jewel of Yorkshire.
You are indeed.
And Mr. Clegg will be joining you later. Now, what is your question to the Deputy Prime Minister, young Neil?
My question was, it was about yesterday's show when we were talking about the HIV drug. That's going to cost however many million it were. I think we were at 23.
Yes, it was.
I'm just wondering why the government that you're involved in is not questioning why we're spending that amount of money on a drug that, like.
Neil, you've got your facts absolutely right. Stay on the line now for listeners who wasn't
is this
listening,
thing called the PrEP?
This is the PrEP, or PrEP. This is a pill that can dramatically cut a person's risk of contracting HIV, and it would appear that it will be made available, or is likely to be made available through the NHS. The cost will be somewhere in the region of £22.8 million. And it is thought that there are around 18,000 gay men who are fairly promiscuous. The take-up is thought to be around a quarter of that. It comes down, this was very well written in yesterday's Independent newspaper, Deputy Prime Minister, it comes down to around 4,500 people, and as Neil rightly says, the cost is somewhere in between 22 and 23 million pounds. This, as it is reported that money has been cut from cancer budgets. Neil's puzzled. Deputy Prime Minister.
So, Neil, forgive me, I haven't read the report myself, and as you know, and this comes up a lot, by the way, on this show, quite understandably, where people say, why is this cancer drug or this drug not available in the NHS, or aren't we spending too much on this or that treatment? I think it's one of the most difficult dilemmas actually in modern Britain, is given that we don't have infinite resources, but there's an almost infinite demand on new medication. Who decides and how what we use taxpayers' money to provide treatments for, and that's why you have these independent reviews. You've got these clinicians in charge of it. You've got the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, NICE, who adjudicate on these things. It isn't something which, thankfully, because I think it'd be wrong if that happened, Neil, for politicians, according to their whims and wishes, to decide upon. I'm not, I haven't followed this that closely, but my understanding is about these drugs, this medication, is that it does provide some kind of protection for the communication of HIV, but of course there are also downside risks if the use of it encourages unprotected sex between individuals. Then of course the danger is that other forms of sexually transmitted disease will go up, and that's where I think you kind of need to make sure that that just as the clinicians decide whether it is supported by the NHS, we also send out a very, very simple and clear message that regardless of whether you use this new drug or not, it is crucial that people have protected sex and they don't do things which jeopardises their health, particularly for sexually transmitted diseases beyond HIV.
Response from you, Neil.
I fully understand that. Obviously, it's not yourself that's in charge of which drugs the NHS buy and sell, but surely when you're seeing headlines like this, common sense should just prevail. And somebody in power like yourself should be saying, hang on a minute, we've got children that are contracting diseases born with diseases, if you like cancer, things like that, which surely that money should be spent on that, and surely somebody in power like yourself should be saying, hang on a minute, do we really want to be spending this amount of money protecting predominantly a group of people that don't want to protect themselves, and that's not That's not me digging at them, you know what I mean? I'm not having a go at that. What they can do, what it is they want to do.
Yeah.
But
I mean, look, Neil, I'm sure everybody listening to this, of course, you know, in a sense, on the one hand, I completely agree with you. You don't want... almost, if you like, unwittingly, for one of the consequences of this drug, which has a very, very positive aspect. It keeps people free of HIV. That's a wonderful thing. You don't want people to sort of, if you like, then end up doing something which is even more risky to themselves by having unprotected sex. People have got to, act responsibly, and that is a message which we shouldn't allow the innovation of this new drug to in any way diminish. So I strongly agree with you on that. But I'll tell you what I'll do after this programme. I'll just find out what the status of that report is and exactly what the next steps are before any final decision is taken about what kind of NHS support is given to the provision of it. But at the end of the day, if this is shown to protect people from contracting HIV, that surely is a good thing. I think where you and I agree, Neil, is it shouldn't be in any way used as a kind of almost by accident as a precedent for people having unprotected sex with each other.
But surely, you wouldn't, just lastly on this, because it's not it is a finite pot of cash. You wouldn't support money being taken away from treating cancers to go towards funding this anti-HIV drug.
No, and exactly. One of the calculations you need to make which is, by the way, where the knock-on effect on people's behaviour is very important, is there are, of course, savings in protecting people from...
Because they won't need the NHS going forward in their
treating
lives.
HIV is a very important thing that we all do, but it's an expensive thing to do. So that, I'm assuming, Neil, is buried in that report.
It is. That
there are cost savings from providing this drug.
OK, Neil, just to assure you, it has not yet gone ahead, and we will make a point of asking Mr Clegg when we see him, as far as I know, we see him next week, to report back on that. We move on. Neil, thank you. Have a safe day in Sheffield.
See you in Sheffield,
yes,
Neil.
Indeed. We move on.
Manaz, is it Manaz in High Wycombe? Hello, Manaz.
Hiya, Nick.
Hello.
I just wanted to speak with you about the poll that they were just discussing earlier on the show about Muslims' views on the Charlie Hebdo.
Right.
And how representative do you think that is of Muslims in general in the UK?
Are you a Muslim Briton?
Yes, I am.
You are. And do you think it is?
No.
No.
Not at all.
No. So, look, I mean... It's not for me to sort of try and second guess what people are saying to pollsters. I should stress, as I have done on many times on this programme, that I think one of the greatest antidotes to extremism in any community, but in this case in our Muslim communities, is of course moderate, law-abiding, mainstream British Muslim opinion. And if I understand it correctly, the polls showed that overwhelmingly Muslim Britons were as revolted and appalled by the violence in Paris as much as anybody else. Then I think
not wholly, Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, I think
10% said they could understand the attack.
Well, that's the point that I think Manaz is ringing about. Is did they say that they felt the violence was justified, or that they understood the offence that was caused by having a depiction of the Prophet on the front cover of Hebdo? And I'm assuming, but I just don't have the questionnaire in front of me. If you ask someone, I mean, by the way, I've always ferociously defended the right of Charlie Hebdo to publish something which I understand is offensive, and in fact deeply offensive to many Muslims. But I still think, in a free society we should be free to offend each other. But I understand that, of course, it has caused offence. What I just find totally unacceptable, as everybody does, utterly abhorrent, is that offence can in any way justify killing. And I'm not clear, Manaz, I don't know whether you are, is whether the questionnaire revealed that people thought that they understood why offence was taken, or that they were somehow saying that offence justified, of course, the unjustifiable.
Right. Yeah, because I didn't actually take offence at it, because, Prophet, he died many years ago, and I don't think he would have been bothered by it. We read what happened in his life. He was insulted all the time, and he turned the other cheek. So for me, I just turn the other cheek. It's their humour. I don't particularly find it funny, but, everyone has their own sense of humour. But the only thing that I find concerning is when you see in loads of media outlets, they're just pushing the fact that, this percent of Muslims, support people going out there and, putting things right as they might see it, and, punishing the people who have done something against them or offended them. that just kind of puts me off, because I don't want people thinking that that's what us Muslims are about, because realistically, most of us that live in the UK, we turn the other cheek. We don't. It doesn't affect us in our day-to-day lives. We don't give it a moment's thought.
Well, do you know what I think, Manaz? I think you should be on the media more. I think you're no, I mean it. I'm not being sort of glib about this. You're clearly incredibly articulate. You're kind of obviously totally kind of relaxed and open about the fact that in an open society people will take offence and deliver offence about people's deeply held views, and that's what you've got to do so that we can all rub along together. And you, seems to me, you represent the best of modern Muslim moderate British opinion, and I think the more that people like you can speak out, that will do more than anything else to dispel some of the stereotypes that of course do get bandied about, and in which kind of I know this from many Muslim British people who I speak to, who sort of feel that they're all slightly tarred by the same brush.
May I just interject? It's Nick Ferrari here. Can I ask you a question, Menaz? If there was a cartoon in the newspaper that you take, whatever it might be, of Muhammad, perhaps with a bomb in a turban, how would you react?
If it was in a newspaper that I read?
Yeah.
I wouldn't react. It's just, like you see cartoons all the time. There's cartoons of the Queen, there's cartoons of other religious leaders.
Okay. Manoj, can I ask you something else?
If they specifically did it to one religion, I think that would be something you'd speak out against. But it's not specific. They've done it to everyone. If you watch South Park, the way they treat any religion, that's their sense of humour. So,
can I ask you something else? Sorry, it's just something that's come up in this conversation. But how would you describe yourself as a British Muslim, or as a Muslim who as a Muslim Briton? I mean, I always say Muslim Britain, because I sort of think there are British people who so happen to be Muslim, not the other way round. I always think when people talk about British Muslims, it's always as if it's their faith which drives everything, and the fact that they're British somehow sort of comes a second place.
What?
That's what I think.
What are you saying?
No,
Why shouldn't the nationality be... Sorry, I'd normally drop my voice at times. Are you really saying that the nationality comes second?
No, that's what I'm saying.
So Menaz is a British Muslim?
I say British Muslim because
Right. No.
Sorry.
I thought you said Muslim Britain.
No, it was a Muslim Britain, exactly. Surely the emphasis is on the fact that you're British.
Is Menaz a Muslim Britain or a British Muslim?
Well, let's ask Menaz.
Well, what do you think?
Well, that's what I want. I want to know what Menaz thinks about herself. Go on, Menaz, tell me.
I'm a British Muslim because you start with where you're from, and then whatever else you might be. So I'm British, and I'm a Muslim.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you say Muslim Britain.
No, I'm just quite interested.
Because you're a liberal.
No. I'm just wondering where's the emphasis? Is it on the first word or the second word? And I just kind of think actually it's always on the second word.
Well, are you an atheist Briton or a British atheist?
Well, surely you are a...
Well, you personally.
Well, I think that it's the second word that's the most important. You're British. Well, it's your you're British. It's the.
I think if someone's going to ask you would just say I'm British. I don't know that you'd necessarily add...
Are you Nick Ferrari, a yellow shirt wearing Briton?
Yeah.
Or are you a Briton wearing a yellow shirt?
Wearing a yellow shirt.
Oh, okay, well, anyway, this is just a linguistic thing.
Sorry, Menaz, you've really got to go. I don't think we'll forget this call in a hurry.
I think we actually agree that the emphasis is that we're all British and we all share the same...
Yeah, British Muslim, not Muslim Britain.
All right, I'm just trying to say, how do you express that?
It's not. Do good policies.
No rubbish.
Wearing a knitted hat.
No, be precise with your language. How do you express the thing that we all share the same values? Right. That's the point that I really wanted to make.
We move on. Right.
Graham in Croydon. Hello, Graham.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You're on the radio. What's your question to Mr. Clegg, please, Graham?
Well, Lord Heseltine recently said, and some other people as well, that being an MP was not a full-time job. So I'd like to ask Mr. Clegg, do you agree with that or not?
No, I think it is. I think it's a full-time vocation, actually, more than a full-time vocation. I think it's a great honour, a fantastic honour, to be able to serve the public, and it's. In that sense, it isn't. I mean, I find it's not like any 9-to-5 job. It's a form of public service that you do every day of the week and every day of the weekends as well. And you serve your constituents, and your constituents quite rightly expect when they elect you as their local representative that you work flat out for them. Does that mean that you can't at the same time? I don't know. You can't write a book, or you can't carry on as a lawyer or as a doctor, or can't carry on in a company you and your family have built up many years before. Still have some role in it. I was just looking. My colleague John Hemming, excellent MP up in Birmingham, is widely considered to be one of the most effective local MPs ever. But he spends, I think, 5 hours every month helping out with companies that he set up in his mid-20s. I think that's, I don't think anyone would reasonably say, oh no, you've got to sort of abandon those 5 hours in a company that you've built up many years before you went into politics. But the central point, Graham, is that you should, of course, devote yourself to your role as an MP. And the thing that we need to, and I think this is, by the way, which I think has been completely missed in this debate, this yaboo between Cameron and Miliband, it's not whether... the issue is not whether Alan Johnson writes a book or John Hemming spends 5 hours a month, helping out a company he set up sort of many years ago. The crucial thing is to stop MPs becoming lobby fodder, getting paid by people so that they can use their influence in Parliament to shape the rules and shape the laws of our country. That is what is absolutely out of order. And that's, by the way, why we've set up this register of lobbyists. We've introduced this legislation so MPs can be recalled, basically sacked by their constituents. But that's the thing which I think quite rightly has appalled people in the past so much.
So Malcolm Rifkind and Jack Straw, if they are found to have been accepting or potentially accepting money, were they stupid or naive?
I think if they were found to, and I don't think this is the allegation, but if they were found to be accepting money so that they can use their position of authority and influence to shape government policy, change laws, that would be totally and utterly out of order. If I understand it correctly from at least one of them was saying what they were doing was sort of planning what they do after they leave Parliament. So look, I'll let them speak for themselves.
Sir Malcolm had to step down from the security committee.
To go on, I know he didn't think he was going on television, but to say to anyone privately or publicly, I don't have a salary when you're being paid more than twice the national average. So, I mean, of course you lose. And of course the sad thing about all of this is that no political party gets any advantage out of this. The public just think, there they go, all over again. It's like Groundhog Day. Here we go, all over again. Snouts in troughs. They're all the same. And of course what happens is the kind of respect for democracy, Parliament, what politics can do just diminishes across the country, and that's very sad.
On the subject, thanks very much indeed, Doug. On the subject of politicians and political leaders, it would appear now we have the list of dates for the leaders' debates, and we're looking in early April that you will feature alongside your opponents for Conservative, Labour, UKIP, the SNP, the Green Party, and Plaid Cymru, and then in the middle of the month you all go round again, and then at the end of the month it's just David Cameron and Ed Miliband. How do you feel about that?
Look, I'm going to take place. I'll participate, in debates as long as they're sort of properly and reasonably organised. Of course, I will. I think the debates are a really good thing. I have to say, I think the way the broadcasters have kind of swung from a sort of logical position, which they had before, which was you do two debates a debate between Miliband and Cameron. I didn't like the fact that I wasn't going to be there, but they then said, and then there will be the major parties, myself and Cameron and Miliband, and then there'll be a sort of wider menu of choices. So they sort of swung overnight from that to suddenly having Tom, Dick and Harry and everybody else.
The SNP,
absolutely everybody. And I just... I, of course, want to participate in the debate. I want these debates to happen. The person who doesn't want them to happen is David Cameron. I mean, let's be clear. The Conservative Party first expressed great compassion for Natalie Bennett and the Green Party. Now they're terribly worried about the plight of the DUP, and next they'll be worried about whether... I don't know.
Free Cornwall, I think.
Yeah, Free Cornwall,
David
exactly.
Cameron,
No, absolutely, and whoever... so they'll come up with one alibi after the next not to participate in the debates.
But should the SNP be taking part in these?
Well, look, I think the bigger question about the SNP, by the way, is a big question for Labour, because Labour appear to be saying that they would entertain the idea of putting the SNP in charge of Britain in a government. And that's just, in my book, that's just not going to happen. In the same way that I would never put UKIP in charge of Europe, I'd certainly never put the SNP in charge of a country that they basically want to rip apart. But look, I think it's important now that everyone gets on with it, that particularly the Conservatives make it really clear. Are they going to run scared of these debates? Are they going to come up with one specious excuse after the next or not? And then let's get on with whatever debates are feasible, because I think that's what the public want.
Let's get more voices on the radio. Deputy Prime Minister.
Karan, is it, in Woodford Green? Is it Karan?
Yes. Good
Hello.
morning, Good morning, Mr. Clegg.
Hi.
Okay, so good timing. You mentioned the dates of the debate, so this might come up in your debate actually. So
so this is preparation.
This is you. Entire London is listening to you right now, and one of the questions is, what is your plan? Not the current coalition plan. Your plan for the next term for affordable housing in London, in or around London. what would you give? And if I can just make a request, if you can spare the New Age talk and give us some actual facts where the money will come from, where you intend to build these houses, what would you say to your voters right now? And also, there's so many luxury apartments that keep propping up all over London, and that often get sold to either Russians or Far Eastern buyers. Are you on that side, or are you say stop building these luxury apartments and let's build more houses and flats for Londoners who live and work here, who've grown up here and need somewhere to live decent?
All right, we want hard facts, not New Age waffle, Deputy Prime Minister.
Not New Age waffle. The first thing I would say, Karan, is that if you want to relieve pressure on housing in London, and the pressure is overwhelming, as you've said, we've got to build more homes and settled communities in the parts of the country near London where many, many families want to live. And that's why I've been such a leading proponent of what have been dubbed garden cities. We've done it before, Hatfield, Welwyn Garden City, places like that, which are not just a little development here, a little infill development there, a few houses there and here and there. They are big sort of planned developments where you also build the amenities, the schools, the transport links and so on. Now, we've made some progress as a government on this, but I think we need to make considerably more to build a number of garden cities in that kind of arc of kind of that space between Oxford and Cambridge. Why is that relevant to you, Karan? Because one of the reasons why you have so much pressure on housing in London is that we don't have enough places for people to live, commute, raise their families, travel in and out of work in the southeast. So that's the first point. The second point is I think we could do more to allow local councils to innovate more financially so that they can, sensibly of course, not busting the bank, borrow prudently to invest in housing, including in affordable housing. The local authorities in this country are still on an incredibly tight leash, in their relationship with central government, with Treasury. And Danny Alexander's done a great deal to pilot new ways in which local authorities could do more. I think that would free up the system considerably. And then, of course, as you may know, we've got these guarantees. It's like a sort of financial insurance policy that we've extended to housing associations so that they, in turn, can also build more homes. And I think...
Mr. Clegg.
Yeah?
4-letter word. Cash.
Yeah.
Where's the money coming from? Karan did say, how is this going to be funded?
Yeah. So some of it is from the private sector. Some of it, of course, is from central government. And some of it is from local government. And some of that public money is borrowed money, and some of that money
How much would this enterprise cost? Do you have any figures for it?
You're trying to lure me. See, look, I've detected this in your interview with Natalie Bennett. You go all slow and gravelly. You sound like a sort of Disney villain. Trying to lure me.
Look into my eyes.
Look, Karan asked me, what are some of the big building blocks? Excuse the pun, in how we can alleviate the housing pressure.
In that extraordinary utopian vision you gave of garden cities popping up around the.
Well, it's not just that utopian, by the way. It's already happening.
Okay, how much was it going to cost?
Each garden city. I'm going to sound very Bennett-esque here, but each garden city, of course, costs differently depending on how large it is.
How much, Mr. Clegg?
Well, each garden city does not cost the same, Mr. Ferrari. It's quite simple because they are located in different places.
Give me an average garden city cost.
No, that doesn't exist. You don't have an average.
Well, give me the highest garden city cost.
No, I don't know the highest.
You don't know how much a garden. What is it with politicians that you don't know how much housing development costs?
Because you can't. But you don't have a fixed price for a garden city. That's a ludicrous assertion. You know that is. Tell me, what was the cost of Hatfield? What was the cost of Milton Keynes?
I'm not seeking to get a seat at the general election. I'm not sitting there just glibly saying we'll build a new city here and we'll build a garden city. I'm not glibly saying I would research facts and work out that an average house to build in this country costs, with the land, I'm going to make it up, £250,000. So if I'm going to bang on about building a garden city outside of Newbury, I'd better know that I've got to have 50 billion quid in my back pocket, respectfully.
Yeah. So the financial model of a garden city is of huge interest to private developers. Of course it is, because what they need, however, is they need help from government, particularly for some of the infrastructure investment on amenities, transport and so on and so forth. And that's the model that we're working on. So what we've done as a government is we've said, and Eric Pickles has been leading this, we've said, look, we want local areas to come forward and say, if they want, for instance, in Bicester, there's a huge amount of local support there for a garden city in Bicester. If they want to have a garden city built in their local area, what do they need from government to do that? And that varies enormously.
All right. OK, quick response from Karan.
Okay, just quickly, your view on the luxury apartments in London?
What do I think they should be abolished altogether? No, of course, I don't think you should abolish a particular form of housing.
What do you mean? The fact that they're bought by so many people from overseas, is that your concern, Karan?
Yeah, because that land could be utilised for affordable housing for Londoners.
OK, there is a sense that these developments, and it is, I'm sorry to be rather tabloid-esque here, but it's the rich Russians and the rich Asians who come in and buy them. Why instead aren't they almost commandeered and made into more affordable housing units?
Well, you can. Of course, you could do that. The local authorities can do. They can impose very, very strict requirements to make sure.
That?
Yeah, of course, I would always support local authorities and the mayor and others to make sure that they put in very stringent requirements that a significant proportion of a new housing development is provided to people who need affordable housing, and that the powers are there already. But what you can't do, Karan, I don't think you can anyway. I don't think you should, is somehow think that it is for central government to dictate the exact composition between affordable housing and private housing and rented accommodation and housing for sale in every single housing development across this country. I personally believe the more we decentralise these decisions and don't have them taken by central government, the better we will do. One of the reasons why we have underbuilt for so long is because everything's been done under these very, very sort of strict rules imposed by central government, which have inhibited local authorities to build houses on the scale they do in other countries.
We move to other calls. Where are we going?
We are going to Andrew in Hayes. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Nick.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you for taking my call. My question is about mental health. Considering the additional 120 million that you've allocated to support mental health services and your commitment to reducing suicides, what is your idea of a perfect solution to help support citizens with mental health problems and reduce suicide rates for the future?
Well, first thing I'd say is, Andrew, if you're at all interested, do listen in on LBC at I think 7 o'clock on Monday, because I'm doing something I've never done before. I think I'm displacing Nick Ferrari, and I'm going to try and lead a discussion myself for an hour with mental health service users, experts, analysts, campaigners, and others for a whole hour. Because this is something, I suspect you're in the same boat as me. I don't know whether it's derived from personal experience. This is something, for you that is, but this is something that I've been campaigning on for as long as I've been in politics, for the reasons you're familiar with. Mental health has always been treated as a Cinderella service in the NHS, hasn't been given the same resources, the same esteem, the same emphasis, and same support as physical health issues. Now, there's a number of things we've already done, Andrew. Some of them you've alluded to: £400 million to improve talking therapies, £150 million to provide help to people with eating disorders, particularly, not exclusively, teenage boys and girls, £120 million to introduce for the first time ever, the same access and waiting time standards in mental health as we've long had in physical health. So, for instance, if you suffer a first episode of psychosis, that you're seen in a 2-week waiting time period, just as much as you'd be referred within 2 weeks to see someone if you were suspected of having cancer. I think there's a whole bunch of other things we need to do. Just yesterday I was in Colchester talking to some veterans who've suffered terrible mental health problems because of this very difficult kind of journey transition from serving in the armed services to then trying to find their feet in Civvy Street. And there's a whole range of other things that we need to do, I think, for children's mental health services. I hope to make further announcements on that in the coming weeks. So if you want to contribute at 7 o'clock on Monday, that'd be great.
You're a plucky chap. I could even say
Thank you very much.
You're showing some cojones, I think is the expression here. Because cojones. I'm sorry for my
just get the pronunciation.
Because you're doing it solo.
I'm doing it solo. Yeah, I've never done this before.
That's the first time anyone of your government position has ever been prepared to go solo like that.
Yeah,
7 o'clock Monday night. Don't miss it with Nick Clegg. All aspects of mental health, and calls straight through to Mr. Clegg. Nobody in the way, just you and him. 7 o'clock on LBC.
Yep, it's a first.
Right, can I have an hour running the Lib Dems? Can I please have an hour running the Lib Dems?
Go on then.
Is that a deal?
No, it's certainly not.
Because I would bang desks, and my God, they wouldn't know
Would you really?
Yeah, got time.
Whip everybody into shape. Daniel in Dublin. Hello, Daniel.
Daniel? No, we've lost Dan. I'm sorry, we've moved from Daniel. This is my fault. Abdi in Hammersmith. We're moving on. Abdi in Hammersmith, you're on the radio. Abdi, go ahead.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Abdi.
Sorry to trouble you. I listen all the time LBC. I was listening earlier this morning about the telephone, people who is using the phone. I saw a police officer driving and holding his phone on his hand and driving, video him, and I was stationary. Then I couldn't believe it, so I started my car, U-turn, follow him. He stopped about half a mile, and then I knock his window. I said to him, "You are a police officer and you're using the phone."
Okay. I think let's just say specifically, you may have seen Deputy Prime Minister's report, and it would appear that there is a policing gap here. It is being reported there aren't enough police officers on the road, and usage of mobile phones is actually increasing. 500,000 people a day.
No, this is incredibly dangerous. I mean, I just don't think we should beat about the bush here. It might seem like someone, I'm going to make a quick call home saying I'm going to be late because I'm stuck in traffic. Quick call to my husband or my wife or whatever. It is really dangerous. It's just, the evidence is overwhelming. You cannot call and devote the same attention as you should to keep yourself safe and others whilst driving a vehicle. That's why in this government we've actually dramatically increased the penalties just I think a couple of years ago, and I personally would be prepared to go further until we send out a clear and unambiguous message that this is dangerous and it should not be done. We've already, we've changed the culture in terms of drinking and driving. We are now changing the culture on people smoking in their own cars. I do think we need to be very clear and unambiguous and outspoken. This is a dangerous thing to do. Don't do it.
You're a football fan, Deputy Prime Minister. It would appear that the 2022 World Cup will now be played through November and December. Otherwise, it's too
absurd. Honestly, it's a bit like saying let's have Christmas in July. It's like, well, so they bid for FIFA. They bid, and they won that competition. Lots of other people wanted to host the World Cup to hold it in the summer. They said, oh, whoops, we can't do it because we've worked out it's too hot. Well, you would have thought they might have worked out that it's a little bit too hot when they made the bid. So I personally think, I doubt very much is going to happen, but I think if there's in any normal kind of world, but it doesn't seem to me that the way that these World Cups are awarded is particularly normal, you'd run the...
What do you mean
well,
by
it's
that?
just, it's like, what kind of...
Are you making suggestions of impropriety?
No, I'm not.
Of course not. Some would suggest these people can't lie straight in bed.
No, I'm not going to do that, but I'm just saying that if it's a huge amount at stake, a huge amount of money at stake, it's international passion football. People love the World Cup. And I think simply to change, excuse the pun, to change the goalposts after you've actually won the contest, I just don't think it's right.
News breaking at this hour, 9:33. I'm with the Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg. We've just been informed, Mr. Clegg, a report into abuse carried out by Jimmy Savile at Stoke Mandeville Hospital says there's no doubt staff knew he was, quotes, a sex pest. It's now estimated there were perhaps 60 victims, including patients and staff at the hospital, possibly, and I feel sick as I say this, Mr. Clegg, the youngest could be as young as 8. An investigation has found staff had become habituated to his behaviour and thought his kissing and touching of patients was not that serious. Mr. Clegg?
Well, like you, I just feel sort of sick just hearing about this. I mean, it's not just the monstrous way in which he preyed innocent people, young children, sick children. In the one place where you should be safe and cared for, hospitals, these little children, sick children, were being preyed upon by this monster. It just makes you want to retch. And of course, we now need to learn the lessons. We've got this report coming out this morning with some lessons learned. Jeremy Hunt will be making a statement in the House of Commons, setting out how we, of course, want to act on all the recommendations that we can from that, because we never ever want to see this vile behaviour by Jimmy Savile and other people like him happen in our hospitals, in our society again.
Before you go out the door, another of David Cameron's promises perhaps in tatters. There was a net flow of 298,000 long-term migrants to the UK in the year ending of September last year. This is, quotes, a statistically significant increase from 210,000 in the previous year. The Conservative leader and, of course, Prime Minister said he'd get it down to the tens of thousands, Mr. Clegg.
Yeah, well, I said to David Cameron he shouldn't make that commitment because it was inevitable he was going to break it, because you can't control the net figure, because it's just as much dependent on how many people leave as many people come in. You can have 1 million Britons leaving and 1 million coming in, and you've met your target. And they made that commitment, the Conservatives. We actually said we weren't not going to do it as a government, as a coalition government, because it's not, in a sense, it's not entirely in your control. And they're now, of course, going to have to quite rightly suffer the embarrassment of having made
How embarrassing is it?
I think it's very embarrassing for the Conservatives. They made a huge amount of fanfare about it, and they were warned. They're warned by me and others privately, don't do this, it doesn't make any sense. No, we must do it. And now, of course, I think they quite rightly will have to suffer the embarrassment of having made a commitment on something which people care about passionately, which is immigration, and they've made a commitment and they've failed spectacularly to deliver it. I think what we need to do and get on with, something I've been getting on with during my time in government, is, for instance, establishing the proper border controls at our borders so that we not only count people in, but we count people out, which we haven't done, by the way, for many, many years. And I'll tell you why that's so important. If you don't know when people leave, then you don't know whether they're overstaying their visas, their entitlement to stay in this country. And that remains the biggest problem in our immigration system, is illegal immigration of people coming in legitimately, but then overstaying illegally. And you can only start dealing with that if you count people out as well as count them in.
And lastly, in a recent poll by Mum's Group as to who they thought which politician would be the best lover, Nick Clegg came a close second behind Barack Obama. As a result of that, Ed Balls told one of my colleagues here on LBC, Ian Dale, that he's a long, slow burner in bed.
Yuck. Did he?
Yes, sadly he did.
Did he really? This is a family show. People are still having breakfast.
Yes, he did. Graham in Bushy...
You can't talk about this kind of thing while people are munching their cornflakes.
Graham in Bushy says, as you've performed so well in this poll, was it your previous friends who voted for you? Mr. Clegg?
I have learnt my lesson. Did Ed Balls say that? Ugh.
Did, yeah, it's in the paper.
No, I don't want to... I just don't want to dwell on that. And I suspect much of the listening public doesn't want to either. It is a family show. Let's keep it clean.
And don't miss Nick Clegg this Monday night at 7. Just him, you and the radio. Don't miss it. That's at 7. Mr. Clegg, thank you.
Thank you.
Appearing here on Call Clegg on LBC when news is next.
A report into abuse carried out by Jimmy Savile at Stoke Mandeville Hospital says staff knew of complaints about him but didn't act